Most of us grew up thinking that losing your memory is just what happens when you get old. We saw our grandparents or older neighbors start to forget names and eventually lose their sense of self. It always felt like a lottery, a fate you couldn't escape if your genes decided it was your turn. For a long time, even doctors shared this view. They saw dementia as an unavoidable part of the aging process, something that was bound to happen eventually. But that medical perspective is changing fast. Today we know that dementia is not just a fate written in our DNA. It is not an unavoidable tragedy that we have to accept. Instead, it is a complex process that we can actually influence through the choices we make every day. The 2024 Lancet Standing Commission on Dementia Prevention has released a new report that changes how we see the future. They're telling us that we have much more power over our brain health than we ever imagined. Experts now estimate that around 45 to 50% of dementia cases could be prevented or at least delayed by addressing specific risk factors. That is nearly half of all cases. When we talk about dementia, we are really talking about what doctors call the family of dementias. This includes Alzheimer's disease, but also includes vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontotemporal dementia. Each one attacks the brain in a different way, but they all lead to the same place, a loss of memory and independence. Right now, dementia is a leading cause of death worldwide. The impact on families is growing every year as the population gets older. However, the shift in research shows that we don't have to just wait. We can look at how to stop the damage before it even starts. The first factor identified is something that happens early in life but affects you forever: education. Research shows that people with lower levels of education in early life have a higher risk of developing dementia later on. This isn't just about having a college degree. It is about building what experts call cognitive reserve. When you learn new things, your brain builds more connections and becomes more resilient. Think of it like a muscle that gets stronger and more flexible the more you use it. If you have a strong cognitive reserve, your brain can better handle the changes that come with age. Even if you finished school decades ago, the core lesson remains the same. Lifelong learning, which means keeping your brain engaged with new skills or hobbies, acts like a shield for your mind. The second factor is one many people ignore until it is far too late: hearing loss. It might seem strange that your ears affect your brain, but the connection is incredibly strong. When you cannot hear well, your brain has to work much harder just to decode sounds. This extra effort leaves less energy for things like memory and thinking. More importantly, when hearing fades, people often start to pull away from their friends and family. They stop going to social events because it is too hard to keep up. This social isolation causes parts of the brain to become less active. Protecting your ears and using hearing aids can make a massive difference. It keeps you connected to the world, which keeps your brain working. Then there's the health of your blood vessels. Factor number 3 is hypertension, or high blood pressure. Your brain relies on a constant, steady flow of blood through tiny, small vessels. When your blood pressure is too high, it damages these vessels over time. This damage can lead to small, silent strokes that eventually cause dementia. Managing your blood pressure through diet, movement, or medication isn't just about your heart. It is about protecting the structure of your brain. Factor 4 is smoking. The correlation between tobacco use and cognitive decline is very high. Smoking causes inflammation and reduces the oxygen reaching your brain. The urgency of quitting cannot be overstated. Every cigarette avoided is a step toward a clearer future. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. By managing these initial factors, we can begin to take control of our cognitive health and change our destiny. Moving beyond the health of our blood vessels and the habits like smoking, we have to look at how our overall physical shape affects our minds. Factor number 5 on the list is our body mass index, commonly known as BMI. Most of us think about our weight in terms of how our clothes fit or how we feel when we look in the mirror. But the 2024 Lancet report shows that carrying a lot of extra weight, especially during middle age, puts a real strain on the brain. This happens because extra body fat is not just sitting there doing nothing. It acts almost like an organ itself, releasing chemicals that cause inflammation throughout your entire body. This inflammation can slowly damage brain cells over the years. By focusing on reaching a healthy weight, you're not just helping your heart or your joints. You're giving your brain a cleaner and safer environment to work in. It is a modifiable risk factor, which means it is something you can change through small daily choices about what you eat and how you live. Next, we have to talk about something that is often hidden or ignored: depression. This is factor number 6. For a long time, many people thought that depression was just a symptom of dementia. They thought people became depressed because they were starting to lose their memories, but we now know it works both ways. Untreated depression can actually increase the risk of developing memory problems later in life. It changes the way the brain handles stress and can even shrink certain parts of the brain that are responsible for learning and memory. This is why it is so important to see depression as a serious medical condition and not just a bad mood or character flaw. Seeking help from a doctor or a therapist is a proactive step in protecting your future self. When you treat the depression, you're also taking care of your brain's long-term health and making it more resilient against decline. Factor number 7 is something many of us struggle with in our modern, busy lives: physical inactivity. You might have heard people say that sitting is the new smoking. Most of us spend hours every day at a desk, in a car, or on the couch. But the human brain evolved to work best while the body is moving. When you move, your heart pumps more oxygen-rich blood to your head. This increased blood flow helps clear out toxins and brings in the nutrients your brain cells need to stay alive and healthy. The good news is that you do not need to become an elite athlete to see these benefits. Even low-intensity movement, like a daily walk around the neighborhood or doing some light gardening, makes a huge difference. The goal is simply to avoid being still for long periods of time. Every extra step you take during the day is like a small investment in your cognitive bank account. Then there is factor number 8, which is diabetes. Specifically, we're talking about type 2 diabetes. There is a very strong link between how your body handles sugar and how your brain functions. When your body cannot process insulin correctly, it leads to high blood sugar levels that can damage the delicate blood vessels inside your brain. Some researchers are so concerned about this connection that they have started calling Alzheimer's disease type 3 diabetes. This shows just how much our metabolic health and our mental health are tied together. Managing your blood sugar through a balanced diet and weight management is one of the most effective ways to lower your risk of dementia. It is all about keeping the fuel system of your brain running smoothly and avoiding the spikes that cause damage over time. Finally, for this part of our journey, we look at factor number 9, alcohol intake. This is an area where the medical advice has changed quite a bit over the last few years. We used to hear that a small glass of wine might be good for you, but the latest research is much more cautious. To keep your risk of dementia as low as possible, the Lancet report suggests staying under 10 drinks per week. Anything more than that starts to have a toxic effect on brain tissue and can lead to early cognitive decline. Alcohol can also disrupt your sleep and lead to other health issues, like high blood pressure, which we already know are bad for the brain. It is all about moderation and being aware of how much you are truly consuming. Keeping your intake low helps ensure that your mind remains as sharp as possible as the years go by. Each of these habits builds on the next, creating a foundation for a healthier future. The brain is a very soft organ protected by a hard skull, and factor number 10 is traumatic brain injury, or TBI. We often think of this only in terms of professional athletes or severe car accidents, but it can happen to anyone. A simple fall at home or a bump on the head during a sports game can cause lasting damage. When the brain moves suddenly inside the skull, it can tear small fibers and cause hidden inflammation. This damage doesn't always show up right away. Sometimes it builds up over decades, eventually opening the door for the family of dementias to take hold. Wearing a helmet while riding a bike, using your seatbelt every time you are in a car, and making sure your home is safe from trip hazards are simple ways to protect yourself. Every time you prevent a head injury, you are protecting the physical structure and the long-term health of your mind. Next, we have to look outside ourselves at the quality of the air we breathe. Factor number 11 is air pollution. For a long time, we thought pollution only affected our lungs, but recent studies show that tiny particles from car exhaust can actually travel into the brain. Once these particles are there, they cause irritation and can lead to the buildup of harmful proteins linked to Alzheimer's. While you cannot always control the air in your city, there are things you can do to lower your risk. Using air filters at home, staying indoors on days when the air quality is very poor, and spending time in parks can help. This is about recognizing that our environment plays a massive role in how our brains age. Factor number 12 brings us back to our relationships. Social isolation is a major risk factor that is often overlooked. As humans, we are built to be around others. When we spend too much time alone, our brains do not get the exercise they need to stay sharp. Talking to a friend, playing a game, or just saying hello to a neighbor keeps your brain active. It forces you to process language and respond to new information. This social stimulation is like a workout for your cognitive health. If you pull away from people, your brain starts to lose its edge and becomes more vulnerable. Staying active in your community is one of the most effective ways to fight back against cognitive decline. Now we come to the discoveries that change how we view prevention. Factor 13 is vision loss. This is the first time researchers have officially added it to the list of factors. Much like hearing loss, losing your sight makes it much harder for your brain to stay engaged with its surroundings. If you cannot see clearly, you might stop reading or stop doing the hobbies that you love. This lack of visual stimulation makes the brain more vulnerable to decline because it is not being challenged. The good news is that many vision problems can be fixed with regular eye exams, glasses, or simple surgeries like cataract removal. Keeping your eyes healthy helps keep your brain active by providing it with a constant stream of information. The final factor Number 14 is high LDL cholesterol, which is often called the bad cholesterol. This is another new addition to the list. We have known for a long time that high cholesterol is bad for the heart, but it is just as bad for the brain. It can cause a buildup of plaque in the arteries that lead to your head, restricting the blood flow and oxygen your brain cells need to survive. Managing your cholesterol through a healthy diet or medication is a direct way to protect your cognitive future. It shows how our physical health and our mental health are tied together. When you look at these 14 factors together, the message is one of great hope. Dementia is not just a random fate. We have the power to influence about 50% of our risk through our daily choices. It is about the cumulative effect of small changes over time. You do not have to change everything at once. Maybe today you start by wearing your seatbelt or booking an eye exam. Maybe you decide to walk a little more or call a friend. Each of these actions builds a wall of protection around your brain. This journey toward better health is something we all share. By taking these steps, we can change the story of how we age. Talk to your doctor about your blood pressure and your cholesterol. Reach out to your community and stay connected. Sharing these experiences and supporting each other makes the path easier for everyone. Your future self will thank you for the effort you're putting in today to keep your mind clear and your memory strong.